So, quality of life is kind of, in my eyes, the reason why we live.
What's this?
Woo! Hey! Ready? Go for it. Whoa. Oh no.
To give some context to the concept of quality of life and how it came about, let's talk about its history and current definition. Quality of life was first studied in 1937, but not by anyone in medicine. The first study was conducted by New York City's Department of Public Welfare. About 10 years later, in 1948, the WHO published the following definition. Quality of life is not only the absence of infirmity and disease, but also a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. It was not until the 1960s that quality of life began to appear in medical literature. Over the years, quality of life has continued to be evaluated and studied. As more is discovered, the broader the definition gets. Today, quality of life is defined as the degree to which an individual is healthy, comfortable, and able to participate in and enjoy life events.
Hi everybody. Our topic for the small group ethics project was quality of life. As we discussed, quality of life is defined differently for every person, which makes it a difficult tool to use clinically. Yet, obtaining a good quality of life for patients is a crucial factor, if not the main goal of medicine. So with this in mind, we decided to approach this project by exploring this topic with our friends and families. Each of us interviewed 2 people that we thought would provide a unique perspective on this topic. We asked them 3 questions. The first was to define quality of life. The second was to rank the impact of losses in 5 different domains, which were mobility, vision, mental health, hearing, and cognitive ability, and to discuss why they chose their number 1 biggest impact. The third was, at what point would you say your quality of life is unacceptable? This is a compilation of their thoughts and perspectives on this topic. Please enjoy.
I'm Stuart Palmer. I am 64 years old.
Catherine Fox Anderson. I'm 60 years old.
My name is Samantha Palmer. I am a speech language pathologist currently working in pediatrics.
Hi, I'm Jim Anderson, Ben's dad. Nice to meet you guys.
It's a very broad topic, and I think that it means something different to every person.
Quality of life means to me a life full of meaning and purpose.
It's always meant, number 1 is loving and being loved.
Quality of life is living in an environment where you're happy.
Like a lot of people our age don't take the time to think about quality of life because we're kind of just in the middle of it and we spend every day however it comes to us.
Security, right? Mm-hmm. It's security that I provide myself. So I want the independence and the security.
It's all about balance. So that you have, a balance between your home life, your work life, your health, to include like physical and mental.
Quality of life means, to me, I think a couple of things. Number 1, I think about family and friends. The other thing that's really important for me is having a meaningful job. Someone that challenges me, makes me feel satisfied, where I make a contribution. So I feel like I've been really lucky to have that. I would also say selecting a good spouse or significant other is really important. And if you have those things, and I just look for balance to be able to do other things, right? So I think about my spirituality or giving back in another way, like volunteering, finding some kind of hobbies, like I love to cook. And then exercise, I think, on a regular basis is really important too.
Really view it, holistically. A healthy mind, healthy body.
I guess for me, like watching all of that fade away would be extremely difficult, right? Like, who am I if I'm not pursuing my goals, if I'm not able to use my intelligence that I'm so proud that I've developed over all of these years? Who am I if I can't go outside and enjoy taking a hike or walking around my neighborhood? Those are all the things that really define me. And so that is my life. And so therefore that is what I expect in my life's quality.
A good quality of life is having those relationships, number one. A degree of health that you can have those relationships. I think that's the key. Health is important, but I think you can find a way to be at peace spiritually with it, even if it's diminished. Definitely the cognitive is important to me because I have an intellectual hunger and I cherish that and value it and need it. Like I need family, love, spirituality.
If I am depressed, anxious, mentally and emotionally overwhelmed, then my ability to function in all the other domains is compromised substantially.
So first, which was not originally first, was mobility. And it's not the loss of being mobile as it is the loss of independence. So I don't mind that I could still see my friends, talk to my friends, have full mental capacity and be in a wheelchair. That doesn't bother me. But the idea that I couldn't toilet myself or I would need help overnight, so somebody would have to stay with me, that's where mobility is the...
Got it. Okay.
I think it would be the quality of, your mind and your mental capabilities, because I've worked with all patients and residents who have experienced varying degrees of Alzheimer's dementia. And even though they were still there physically, it was almost as if they were a prisoner in their own body because they weren't able to communicate with the outside world. So going off that, I would definitely feel like losing, mental and cognitive capabilities would be the toughest for me, although all are difficult in their own way.
And I feel like when your mental health is in tune, then everything else kind of falls into place. I rank that above cognitive because to me, cognitive is more like intellectual abilities, but mental health is more like personality and coping skills. So
I guess me being somebody who's always been so physically active, to lose the ability to have function, the functional mobility would be a difficult thing for me to be able to handle. A lot of it's just what you grew up with and what you value. I mean, somebody who never really exercised much during their life, and all of a sudden they're already sedentary to begin with, and I see it all the time. Now they're in a wheelchair. It's not a big deal to them.
Social emotional is number one because it's all about love. And to me, that's the purpose and the blessing and sometimes the sadness of why we're all here.
And I think that for me, like that thing would be losing my ability to like spend time and feel happy with other people. I also think that sight is really important for me. I would be really upset if I lost my sight as I sit here with glasses on. But, like I love spending time in the mountains and seeing the views, especially in Western North Carolina. And so not being able to like partake in that anymore. Yes, you will have the memories that you made, but just knowing that I wouldn't be able to like see a sunrise or a sunset anymore would be really upsetting.
So for me, I think cognitive ability would have the biggest impact just because a lot of the clients that I deal with that are dealing with either a lower IQ or cognitive impairments, there's a lot of frustration that I see with those clients specifically. There's not quite as many accommodations or things we can do to fix a cognitive deficit that I think would be really, really hard to deal with that frustration, why you don't understand something or why something is so difficult for you.
I just can't imagine if my cognitive abilities really declined significantly. Like, you know, your mom's parents both had different forms of dementia and Alzheimer's, you know, and so you lose sort of that person before they're gone, physically.
I would like to think that's never, you don't want to get to that point. Do people get there? I'm sure they do. I can't envision it. I mean, I guess if I had no ability to do anything, I had no family, no dynamic, psychosocial support, and there was nobody there for me, then you'd be like, what am I here for?
I think that being isolated, like I would never want to be at this stage where no one is coming to see me and I'm not leaving my home to see anyone. I think that would take such a toll on my mental well-being, that I would not want to necessarily be participating in the living world anymore. That's a strong thing to say, but it's true, and that I would be just so sad knowing that I was missing these connections with other people, like FOMO, I guess, that you.
What is it that would make me miserable, right? Extreme amounts of pain on a regular basis, lack of hope. Oh, well, just the loss of mental and cognitive function. You know, if I really wasn't who I was anymore, I just, you know, what is the point? I mean, I hate to be so blunt about it, but you know, if I didn't know who I was or the people around me, if I had full-blown Alzheimer's, I just can't see the point of that. You know, that who I am is gone.
It would almost be unbearable if it reached the point where I felt like my burdens and limitations were almost a burden on, you know, the other people in my life that were caring for me.
And you don't really seem to be enjoying your day to day, even if it's just little things. Like if you get enjoyment out of watching something on television, or if you get enjoyment out of food, or you get enjoyment out of spending time with your family. When you no longer seem to enjoy those things and your family is really struggling, like if your family doesn't enjoy, they can't see that light inside of you that brings them joy, that's when I think that has been, we've crossed the line into unacceptable.
It's probably things that I can't control. If I can't control my thinking, my vision, my thoughts, my mobility,
So
then that's a sign that I'm going downhill.
A loss of hope, I guess, is definitely up there with the social, emotional, cognitive relationship, because something's gonna feed hope, and those are the things: your mind and your relationships.
If as those 1 to 5 I've rated, if those begin to decline, and as more of those add up, then my quality of life is beginning to deteriorate. At what time, at what place is that unacceptable for me to live anymore or want to continue to live? I don't know exactly when that part would be, but by the time we get to 3 or 4 being compromised, then I'm starting to wonder about how do I relate? How do I have purpose? How do I have meaning? Why be here?
Okay.
What I fear is having medical interventions that cause pain and hardship, and they might extend my life a little bit, but by a certain age, I don't want them. I really don't want them.
Like if the prognosis is grim and you would truly need a miracle to recover fully, the quality is not there. And so then it would be unacceptable to.
I think that it's kind of really hard to talk about that without kind of being in that situation, right? So my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. It was pretty severe. And her prognosis is not great. And because of all of that, the treatment that she received was very aggressive. So it's really hard to kind of decide when it would be enough, because I see my mom, I know she's healthy. Her cancer right now is in remission. And so she theoretically she's fine, but I know that she's not. But at the same time, I think that she could keep going. And she doesn't necessarily want to. So it's really hard. I think that until you're really in that situation and you experience that for yourself, it's really hard to know when it's worth giving up all the things that you still want to live for, right? But there's so many other factors that are making her less prone to enjoying her life. So it's really hard. And then even taking just one step outside of that and watching it all happen to someone else, I couldn't even begin to put a start and stop point on when I personally would want to call it in. So
I know people with brain diseases like Alzheimer's and dementia can still feel joy a lot of the time. And we, as people who watch those illnesses happen to them, feel really sad to watch it, but we forget that they can also still be happy.
You just heard from a myriad of individuals from various walks of life. They were tasked with trying to define quality of life, what would constitute a good quality of life, and what would have to happen to them to make their quality of life unacceptable. Based on these experiences and after discussing it, we concluded that there may be some level of objective agreement about what constitutes a good quality of life. Generally, lack of disease or positive health, lack of pain, both physical and psychological, friends and family, and independence seem to be the most critical issues that everyone has some agreement about. Where it gets more ambiguous is what exactly constitutes an unacceptable quality of life, or a life not worth living. On that question, it does seem that the variation can be quite substantial. A severely diminished quality of life for one person may be enough to push them over the edge, while for another, they may feel that these certain struggles, tragedies, or loss may be what brings out the best in them, making those losses manageable, and in some cases bringing them meaning sufficient to justify that suffering. On this question, we remain more ambiguous.
So it's so important to talk to your patients about their goals of care and be realistic with them about what their health concerns kind of limit in that term, but also to make sure that their concerns are being validated and being heard and being considered in their treatment plan. And then it's also really important to include their loved ones in that conversation as well, and make sure that their loved ones aren't actively doing things against the patient's wishes, and to make sure that you can mediate those conversations and be like, well, I know that you might want this for your mom, for example. Like I might want my mom to keep fighting, but my mom might not want to keep fighting. And my mom has every right to live out the life to the best of her ability and then to pass peacefully. And so it's important for us to be on the same page about that as well. And so as healthcare providers, we have that responsibility. We have the responsibility of listening to our patients and then doing what they want, and then advocating for our patients both within the hospital, but also within their own families. So.